Next slide. So I'll start off with a little history. Again, my name is Jen Desert. I'm the city engineer for Burnsville. This process began about 1.5 years ago when the city started a citywide stormwater system modeling and analysis study. The study was broken into 3 components. First, we updated our storm sewer system model for the whole city. And then we evaluated the highest flood risk areas and potential improvements. And then the last thing was a chain of lakes review of lake levels from Keller Lake to the Minnesota River. For many years, the city has heard concerns with lake levels on Crystal Lake and South Twin Lake. And recently we've heard concerns with a new development occurring north of South Cross and the implications of that development on our water bodies. This improvement project addresses those concerns. And in a minute, I'll ask Justin to review the details. But before he does, I wanted to note that the funding for this project comes from the Stormwater Utility Fund. Additionally, the developer north of South Cross is contributing. There will be no special assessments used to pay for the project. So that's a little bit on the funding. And now I'll turn it over to Justin Claybo. He's our consultant project manager from A2S.
Thank you very much, Jen. I'm happy to be in front of you guys today to give you a little more background on the project and kind of walk you through where we're at today, and really here to hear from you guys as the public and the residents of just any concerns or questions you guys might have. So as Jen pointed out here, we have a timeline thrown up on the PowerPoint. So, this was started in June of 2019. As part of the study in June of 2019, and specifically even the Keller Lake to the Minnesota River Valley study, which is depicted in the image on the screen, we did do some public outreach. We actually heard from probably a lot of the individuals that are on the call today. So thank you for joining us again. But we wanted to hear what are known drainage issues or issues with the storm sewer system, the lakes, the outlets, anything and everything within the system, and even focus specifically on this Keller Lake to Minnesota River chain of lakes. So that was done in 2019, really just wrapping up towards the end of this summer. And as we move forward into it, currently right now we're in the preliminary engineering stage. So as we look ahead to, what those study goals were, we really wanted to better understand the dynamics, like the infrastructure, the lake flooding, what's going on out there, so we can have a better understanding of just the modeling, what you guys might be seeing out there, and make sure we look at those together in concert to determine what's, a viable solution for everything. Specifically, like Jen pointed out, reducing the, high water periods of Crystal Lake. I know there is some known high water level issues, but predominantly, there's a lot of no-wake conditions that are experienced, this last summer, the year before, there were substantial times and periods that the lake couldn't have a wake on it. And then known for erosion when you do have those high water level periods. And then the other part of that is with the Twin Lake system. Something that we heard out of that was the development of alternative approaches to reduce flooding, not only the level, but also the duration of flooding within the Twin Lake system. So as we get into it, where are we today? The study, I threw up this little timeline. I wanted to put it back up there. We're right at the beginning, right? So the graphics you're going to see right now are, the initial graphics we've prepared just to give some concept level idea of what we're looking to do. So we're starting that preliminary engineering phase, reaching out to you to understand just, different input. And then from there, like Jen pointed out, we were looking at doing a final design and ultimate construction if it's selected that we want to move forward with that. So the project goals currently, the biggest things that came out of the study phase was to reduce the duration of flooding and reduce the lake level flooding experienced within the immediate chain of lakes. And those first 3, or I don't say first 3, this is 2, 3, 4 basically, but we're looking at Crystal Lake, South Twin, North Twin, and the regional pond. So kind of those 4 water bodies within, that area east of 35W, as you guys all well know better than myself. So the first location we're looking at improving is the Crystal Lake outlet modifications. Looking at the outlet structure itself, looking at trying to improve the amount of discharge that we can have through the lake to really reduce that drawdown period. For any resident living around Crystal Lake or just, in the vicinity of Burnsville, understands that lake takes a long time to drain down, which then that means that there's less storage available if you were to get another rainfall event to help attenuate flows downstream. Now, when you move to South Twin, well, with South Twin, it is a flashy lake. It's a lot smaller than Crystal Lake, has a lot of storm sewer systems that go to it. And so with that, there's the period of experience that you have a high water level condition. So you want to move that water out of there as quickly as possible. And so looking at improving that by providing a new outlet control structure and discharge pipe independent of the system the pipe that currently exists, and I'll show you here in a minute. And then the regional pond expansion. So the regional pond expansion, might wonder, well, it's not immediately within North Wind or South Wind, but that does feed and take a lot of runoff from the northerly areas. And with that, we're looking at improving, different ways we can, provide additional storage within an area that's currently undeveloped, but also provide some potential water quality benefits if we can integrate that into the project. So as you look at this, like I mentioned before, just to kind of wrap up exactly what we're trying to achieve at these 3 different locations. Like I said, the lake drawdown reduction time for Crystal Lake specifically, and then within the South Wind, North Wind regional pond complex, it's the combination of not only drawdown, but looking at high water level reduction. Because of this system, as everything flows from Crystal Lake into South Wind, then into North Wind, and then ultimately out of the system, and then west across 494 underneath South Cross. So that's ultimately how this overall system works together. So as we look at this, we'll look at individually, one at a time, what are these improvements entail? So individually, as you might notice here with this plan sheet, we're looking at improving the outlet control structure specifically on Crystal Lake. The work that we're looking at doing would be comprised of just an area around Crystal Lake itself. As far as timing goes for these 3 projects, Crystal Lake, we'd be looking at doing Crystal Lake in the fall. The reason for that is obviously Crystal Lake is a heavily utilized water body just for access purposes, constructability, and other things for a contractor. Looking at utilizing a portion of the parking lot just for some staging of equipment, nothing that would be reconstructed, but simply just materials, vehicles, and things like that. Allow a contractor to easily access the outlet control structure, knowing that because the parking lot's used extensively during boating season, looking at doing that project next fall after Labor Day to make sure that we limit the disturbance to that area. One of the things that you know in Crystal Lake here is you have the graph here on the bottom of the screen. Why are we doing this? So the idea is we're trying to increase the discharge from the lake. And by increasing the discharge from the lake, we can see, I'm noting here over a 30% reduction in the time it takes from that high water level condition to get back down to what a normal water condition is or a no-way condition. And you might ask, what at 30%, what does that mean? I'm talking, 7 to 8 days quicker. It takes a long time for Crystal Lake to draw down when you have these really large rain events or conditions that have a water level over the no-way condition. So you're talking a substantial amount of time that's reduced to help you alleviate the no-way condition. But one of the other bigger parts is also alleviate the erosion potential along the shoreline. When you have those high water level conditions, you're very susceptible to creating erosion along the shoreline. So ultimately, it's a great balance of trying to improve discharge while protecting the lake itself. As we move forward and move downstream, we look at South Wind. So South Wind here, as I mentioned before, is we are looking at installing a new outlet and a new pipe that connects into the downstream storm sewer system. So if you can see, it's kind of hard to tell, but on North Twin Lake, there's a little green line that connects into North Twin, and that's the ultimate outlet for South Twin. So the water flows into South Twin from Crystal Lake, then it flows under the culvert under South Cross into North Twin, and then from there it has to leave by its own outlet control structure and work its way under South Cross. What we're trying to do is bypass the water from having to go from South Twin into North Twin and then out of the system. And so what this helps do 2 things. It helps reduce the high water levels, and it also helps reduce the drawdown period. So again, kind of mentioned on Crystal Lake, if we can reduce the drawdown period, I know we've had back-to-back rainfall events where you might get a couple inches one day and then 3 days later we get 4 inches. Well, if we're able to get those water bodies drawn down quicker, we're less susceptible to have high water level conditions because it creates more volume in these lakes and ponds for storage to temporarily hold that water before it's able to discharge out. So the idea here is that we can use a new outlet that'll just bypass North Wind and let that water flow into the region or the large trunk storm sewer system under South Cross and ultimately discharge and go downstream. Again, with this on the graph, we're looking at, again, it's that 6 to 7 to 8 day benefit when you're looking at the higher water level conditions. And then when you look at the normal water level, you're still looking at a fairly substantial benefit. The overall improvement for this area would be focusing on South Cross Drive itself, the eastbound lane specifically. Working through the alignment of where that storm sewer might fit. It might be kind of under the center line of the roadway today. Might be in the curb and gutter. We're working through kind of alternatives with the city right now to look at what's minimizes impacts and maximize the overall benefits for everything. So that's just currently in process to figure out where that goes. Ultimately, looking at South Cross would maintain two-way traffic. It would just be shifted to the northbound lanes, and it'd have to be single lane traffic, or not northbound, the westbound lanes, excuse me, just on the north side of the roadway with single lane head-to-head traffic with some construction cones. So as we move then and continue to go north, we're looking at the regional pond expansion. So the regional pond expansion is trying to serve a few different things. One of the biggest things here is to provide additional storage, and really the benefit, the drawdown, of South Twin to hold back more water, and also North Twin. So that way that water with the new outlet control structure we're putting in South Twin can simply drain out. And what the idea here is that we can hold back additional water within the regional pond to allow that water to flow. So that way any water coming in from the large storm sewer systems to the north can hold back slowly, then discharge in the North Twin and reduce high water level conditions and also flooding. One of the things we're exploring with this option is also rerouting a storm sewer system that's located from kind of the northeast area, trying to bypass water then to maximize the benefit that we can. Also looking at providing a larger berm and raising the berm up to hold back more water. With this project, this is a heavily treated area. What we're looking at doing to maintain an adequate buffer is to hold off and grading all the way up to the property line of the cities with the residents that are located off the cul-de-sac and to the north, providing an undisturbed buffer between where our grading stops. And that way the trees and everything in between that and the property line can maintain a visual buffer between existing residents and the new construction that we're constructing down the hill. One of the other things we are also exploring for this area is trying to expand the permanent pool of the actual pond itself. If we can expand the volume of that permanent pool, that'll help provide some additional water quality benefits for the downstream receiving waters and ultimately for the overall system. So those are in general the three projects that we're looking at doing. Like Jen kind of mentioned, it's in concert together. They all work together trying to maximize the benefit to the system, not only to Crystal Lake, but to South Twin, to North Twin, and any downstream receiving water. And through our modeling that made that possible to look at that in a very dynamic way, because our model takes into account all of the water within that overall Keller Lake to the Minnesota River Valley chain of lakes system and the storm sewer system. So we can look at any benefits across the board and make sure that there are no impacts anywhere downstream or upstream for this project. So ultimately, all three projects are improving high water level conditions. So they're reducing those levels, and they're also reducing the time it takes to draw down. So that way the water bodies have more water or more volume to store runoff in the event that you get more back-to-back rainfall events to help improve the overall system. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jen and she can walk you through some additional information on the project.
Thanks, Justin. So before we get to questions, I wanted to let you know how you can get updates or provide comments. So first, we have a project website, burnsvillemn.gov/stormwater study. And I think you all have gotten there because you've gotten to this Zoom meeting, and that's where that link was posted. From this homepage, you'll be able to look at the study that was completed that I talked about in the beginning, and then go to the link for the improvement project. On the improvement project page, we will be adding project updates as well as the video of tonight's presentation. And there's a comment form that you can enter in your comments. Additionally, on the last slide, when we have our final questions, there's both Justin and my email addresses will be posted. And so you can email us with your feedback as well.